Alrighty, how's it going everybody? Jonathan here with Boston Collectors, and it's been a hot minute for an unboxing, and we do apologize. We finally received our latest figure, and I'm very excited to dive into this review for you all. Although this release is from the Mandalorian, Bo-Katan Kryze will be representing the Clone Wars in my display. Let's go ahead and get into it. On the cigar band, we have the usual information of the figure, as well as a photograph decorating the front portion of the Mandalorian themed wrap. We also have the Star Wars embossed logo resting just above the band. Located on both sides, the theming of the band continues, which allow collectors to store their art boxes in a very unique way. You can either showcase the information of the figure or the photo on the opposite side. On the back of the packaging, we're presented with the standard warnings, store locations, and information pertaining to the figure. On the top and bottom of the box, we also have the Star Wars logo. In the middle of the shoebox style packaging, we have a beautiful portrait of Bo-Katan Kryze holding her helmet. Upon opening the box, we're greeted with an art card which can be seen in Hot Toys' promotional material during her announcement. If you're enjoying our review so far, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for future content. Check us out over on Instagram to stay up to date on weekly posts for Hot Toys news as well. With all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into the accessories. Out of the box, Bo-Katan is equipped with a pair of relaxed hands. These are unlike anything we've seen before, and there's a great amount of depth and detail included. These are good to have for posers like me who aim to have more of a relaxed pose in my display. While these are considered relaxed or somewhat neutral, they're fantastic at pulling off holding various accessories from previous releases. It could be worthwhile to see what you might have stuffed away that could complement her in your display. And yes, the Darksaber as well for you Rebel fans. Continuing on, we have a pair of trigger hands for her pistols. There isn't anything out of the norm here, and equipping her pistols aren't really that difficult either. At least for me. Her blaster pistols share the same design as the Death Watch Mandalorian release, but she's got her own style separate from them. Notable mentions being the wood grain grip, the multi-blue finish, and a bit more grime to her weapon. Holstering is as easy as sliding the weapon where it belongs. If you're curious, yes, she can hold the Darksaber if you'd like her to. It isn't a perfect fit, and if you've tried to have Mando hold it as well, then you know the index finger will stand out a bit. If that doesn't bother you, and you're a Star Wars Rebels fan, then you'll be good to go. You can also have her holding a few other weapons as well if you so choose. Next, we have a pair of fists included with this release. Bo's a fighter. She's got an array of weapons in her gauntlets, so it's only right for Hot Toys to include a pair. Similar to previous releases, we're still shoving the grappling hook beneath the gauntlet. It gets the job done, and it has a nice application of paint on the end of the hook. Since we're here, the next accessory can be installed in the gauntlet. Carefully pop off the hand and slide the gauntlet off to begin the installation. It's a very seamless design, but it's also somewhat fragile. Begin by using your nail to eject the smaller piece from the front. You obviously don't want to lose this, so store it safely. Now we can install her blade into the gauntlet. As a side note, it won't install on the other side since there isn't a cutout for it. Applying it isn't difficult, but it does require a bit of care when you remove it later. When you're ready, simply add the gauntlet back to her body and you're set. It looks pretty good for what it's worth. I just don't care for the application of it. Lastly, we have the left hand for the communicator as well as the communicator device. For such a tiny accessory, Hot Toys did a great job with the detail work for it. The grip along the sides look really good, and the front end really does appear as a speaker. As for the base, it's one of my favorite designs for Star Wars figures. With this particular release, they installed the bottom portion of the stand into the base. It doesn't bother me, but the blank nameplate is. We'll touch on that in a moment. For now, I really love the depth in the design as well as the paint application. Hot Toys included the nameplate in the packaging, but you'll have to apply it yourself. They should have provided two and applied it for us, but more on that shortly. Applying the bendable flight pole is easy, as it's utilizing a twisting feature for its installation. After you're done, you can apply the lobster claw included. Before placing Bo-Katan on the flight stand, let's install the flame effects included. For whatever reason, her jetpack is velcro to her bodysuit and it isn't magnetized. I would suggest taking her jetpack off for this section, but you can install these as you see fit. The flame effects have a tight fit in the jetpack exhaust and it requires a bit of force due to it. Now that we're done, we can go ahead and apply the jetpack back to our figure. However, since we're showcasing it on the stand, we'll apply it after. I don't like that the claw is digging into the pleather. That's something you'll have to be cautious of. When it all comes together, it looks really good. If you're a photographer, you can easily edit out the flight pole in post. If you're a poser, you don't want to leave your figure in the lobster claw for long. You will end up damaging it after a while if you do. For the second part of the base, Hot Toys added a diorama-style railing to this release. While the lights weren't given a light-up feature, I appreciate them giving us more than a standard base. This is meant to appear as a continuation from the base included, but you could have it as a standalone feature in your display if you so choose. For a seamless appearance on the front, you'll have to remove the nameplate. If that doesn't quite work for you, you could simply add it behind her as well. For the groove on the front, this is why Hot Toys didn't apply the nameplate. I guess they were giving us options. The overall design of the railing is really good, and I'd love to see smaller additions like this going forward. I love the paint texturing and the application to it. Lastly, we have a blurred side of the freighter that they were hijacking. This is going back in the box. If you know Bo-Katan, you know her helmet when you see it. The battle damage and her infamous Night Owl insignia is still present even from her Clone Wars appearance. The overall design is slightly elongated from what was seen in The Mandalorian, but it's accurate to what we saw in her animated appearance. What are your thoughts on that? If they are mixing the Clone Wars into it, I would have loved a hooded poncho as well. They are including Clone Wars additions to other figures like Cad Bane, so why not here? I digress. The helmet looks really nice, and I like all of the painted nicks and dings around her bucket. It's a great way of showing everything she's been through. I'm also a fan of the way the light play with the shapes and the paint application throughout its design. Like the previous Mandalorian releases, Bo's rangefinder is equipped for articulation. Other than having a noticeable design change for the majority of the Mandalorian women, the basic design for all of them do share similarities. Unlike Boba Fett though, the inside of Bo's helmet isn't fully decorated. However, if you'd rather her holding her helmet, it is possible. The portrait for Katie Sackhoff's likeness went under a lot of scrutiny. Believe it or not, nothing was really changed from the prototype. If anything, it would be her lips. Previously, her mouth appears slightly wider and her lips slightly thinner. Other than that, it's the exact same thing we saw before. I have to admit, I don't see what other collectors are saying when they say this isn't Bo-Katan as seen in The Mandalorian. I only have two arguments for this portrait. The hair color should be a brighter reddish tone, and there's a mole on the right side of her face simply added in as a freckle and become lost with the rest of them. Other than that, this is Katie Sackhoff as Bo-Katan. I'm also happy that the portrait creator added an extra layer of hair for more depth versus one layer. There's a nice amount of movement with a very subtle black-gray wash on the ends as well. As always, I'd like to show off a bit more of the detail in her portrait through lighting. Her scar is raised, as well as the mole beneath her eye. The freckles are prominent, and there's a human-like texture to her skin, replicating pores. Before we control the light source ourselves, notice the way the shadows play off of the portrait. As we begin, you're able to see the attention to detail through the freckles in her face, the subtle lines beneath her eyes, and the hint of red in her irises. In my opinion, this isn't a portrait that will require a particular type of lighting condition before saying you can see her likeness. Apart from the few things I've mentioned before, I don't have anything bad to say about her portrait. If anything, I think collectors should take a moment to realize Katie's features are prominent, and that's okay. This is Bo-Katan, stoic, militant, forthright. Her expression matched what I know her character to be as well. Before we start this segment, I feel compelled to let you know that the body is the worst part of this release. For $285, is your money well spent? Let's go ahead and begin. The pleather pouches found along the belt are movable if you'd like to adjust them in a particular fashion. They're all tailored very nicely as well. With that, we have the pleather holsters attached to her belt by a plastic component. If you live in a climate where pleather might peel and flake, you should prepare yourself for this one. We have strips of pleather on the thigh region in front, pleather located between the belt and hip armor plates, as well as an intricate pleather design on her suit. A lot of love went into producing this figure, and it really does show based on the suit's sewing patterns. As for the armor, it's painted very nicely, with the breastplate having a beautiful gunmetal sheen. My only problem is the Ironheart isn't as dark as we saw it in The Mandalorian. Other than that, it looks amazing and brings the entire design together. With this release, we have a split-cut boot design featuring pleather boot spats. These hook beneath her feet similar to the Armorer's release. Another cool feature to this outfit are the pieces of armor located on her knees. The elastic band is designed into her suit, but it could be problematic if it snaps. Let's just hope it doesn't. For now, I love being able to adjust it for my poses. The sad part about this figure is its body. You really would have to swap this out for something else because her posing isn't fun. For $285, I feel as though we paid for the pleather and the intricate design to Bo's outfit. Her legs and arms are single jointed, there isn't a butterfly joint in her shoulders, and the thigh swivel doesn't exist either. For a character like this, I feel as though Hot Toys dropped the ball a little bit. Posing her for me won't be too dynamic since I'm unable to. Chances are she'll be in a subtle pose here and there depending on how I feel, which is rather unfortunate. If you're not a poser and you're okay with it, you don't have to worry. But for $285, we should all be worried. We typically make height comparisons for our videos, but we wanted to try simply comparing figures between eras. Let us know what you think. Even though Ahsoka's from the animated series, she looks amazing next to Bo-Katan. As seen in the Clone Wars Season 7, we also have the Revenge of the Sith Obi-Wan. From the same series, we have Moff Gideon. The Death Watch could be another Clone Wars reference, if you choose. Revenge of the Sith Anakin, as seen in Clone Wars Season 7, also looked pretty cool next to her. Of course, we have Darth Maul, the ruler of Mandalore, the release without his darksaber. I could go on. At this point, I think you know I love Clone Wars, so I had to add Rex. A few 330-second clones wouldn't hurt in the display either. And we also have the beef between her and Boba Fett at the diner. If you have Clone Wars Darth Maul, then you also have the last Mandalorian sarcophagus that was used for his capture. And last but not least, the Mandalorian. As shocking as it might sound, this is arguably one of the top 10 figure releases this year based off of the quality of her design alone. A lot of thought went into her suit tailoring, and even though it isn't 100% accurate, there are teeny tiny details that are only noticeable if you're nitpicking. Her collar is one, but I'm not deducting points for it. The only negative here is her body. Even if collectors want to make an excuse for Hot Toys, why don't we have a cut at the thigh? Butterfly joints? That won't pinch or destroy the fabric of her suit, so why wasn't that included? I love the products Hot Toys create, and I can't imagine how arduous it is to get this right. But I don't want to give excuses if we're paying top dollar for their products and expect a standard of a double-jointed body. This is the second time this happened, and the last one was the Armorer. Apart from that, I really do love this release. I just find it difficult to gush over it because of my disappointment. However, I'll give them their flowers just as much as I'll give them their faults. The craftsmanship and the tailoring alone is worth the expense. It is absolutely gorgeous, as well as the portrait. I'd understand being hesitant on this one, but I am glad I picked her up. With that said, I'm giving this release a firm 8.5 out of 10. Before we sign off, don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it, and consider subscribing to our channel. If you'd like to become part of our community, check out our Discord server where you can talk with like-minded collectors. This is Jonathan with Boston Collectors, and as always, it doesn't matter what we rate the figure. If you like it, we love it. We'll catch you on the flippity flop.